I have seen them with a great long trunk. I know what they look like. We get them in Scotland, you know.
It's a dinosaur, isn't it? Steven Spielberg. You stick with it, boy. I'm with you.
But another bugbear of mine is people say, a Scottish accent? You think, hang on, no, that's like saying an English accent. There are hundreds of Scottish accents.
Yeah,
And they just go, well, and also when you offer a Scottish accent, they go, ooh, I don't know. You think, hang on, there's people live in Scotland, there's Scots people live in England.
Simon, that voice you do the best Middle Eastern voice I've ever heard.
But all it is this voice, you know, he's the shopkeeper what has lived in London long time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I'm go to the shop and it's a shopkeeper that I go to, and he knows that my wife works on The Apprentice.
Right.
And he says, listen, that show, what is come to him, you know, what is you bloody fire, him. He's good, isn't it? What is name? Sugar Allen, him. He's very good.
Sugar Allen. Used to be one of the tiller dancers, you know.
But no, this voice is probably, I don't know, from the Middle East someplace, isn't it?
Adam Longworth does this thing when he goes, bre. No, you're saying that when you go in. There's a restaurant I go to off Edgware Road, and I used to go, and George Bush was president, and it's I think it's an Iranian restaurant actually. And they're so hard working. They go in and you get your kebab and your that fabulous bread, you know. And every time I go in, they go, Mr. Bush. It was always, I'd walk in, you know, and they would insist that I ordered my meal as George Bush. Well, give me some Lexi, I'll have the bread as well. Couldn't wait to get out of the place, you know.
But on the voice thing, you must get this as well, that people say, where does it come from? How do you do it? And you can't explain. It's just something that is there. You have it, and you've always had it. You've always had these voices in your head. Obviously, you practice and you can get better at them and stuff like that. But there's a thing that you're born with that you can just do it. You do literally have voices in your head.
When you're going for work, I mean, obviously, Simon, you've done a fair bit of telly as well. Clients obviously know who you are. I mean, I've had it where they don't necessarily know your range or what you can do. How do they approach you with a character?
Well, they're often fairly well mapped out, and they kind of know what they want. And with the Alexander character, they wanted Russian. They wanted Russian right from the word go,
right?
Which I found a little bit strange. But I think the agency think that meerkats come from Russia because they're not the brightest kids. So they wanted Russian straight away, which was very clever. And then we just kind of played around with it, and I kept saying no up the pitch. He's smaller than that. He's smaller because they kept going, oh no, he's more of a kind of slightly sinister character. I said no, he's funny. He's little. He's got big eyes. So with that one, there was a picture. I mean, often there isn't a picture, which is difficult because you think and you get a bum steer. But sometimes you know the door is completely wide open and they really don't know what they want. They go, okay, just try anything, and you do, and you go, okay. But often what you're giving them is you're helping them out by showing them what they don't want.
Yeah.
And so they go, oh, I see. Okay, no, that doesn't work.
Oh, it's horrible when they really don't like it, though, isn't it? Yeah. And you can sort of lip read when they close the talk back, and all you can see them going with their mouth. That was awful. That was really awful.
Well, the guy can't speak.
Talk back goes back on.
Hello.
Great take, Simon. That was absolutely fantastic. If we could just up the pitch a little bit, yeah.
Well, I was also going to say that in a way, the accents are changing, and they're more acceptable now. Because I think after the war, this country was very kind of tired of that voice that told us what to do. Hello and welcome. And there was so much of that voice. There's a famous bit in Passport to Pimlico, which is an Ealing comedy, where the government what happens is there's a little bit of Pimlico that decides to break away from the rest of Britain, and the government send a speaker van down, and it goes, now listen here, you lot, just stop doing what, and one of the characters goes, oh, shut up, will ya? We're sick of hearing that voice in this country. And I think that was the case after the war, that everyone was tired of that kind of very public information, very speaking to you like that.
It was Alex Salmond last week, you know.
Right, this is how we're going to do it. And I think once we break away, we'll be better friends than we were when we were the United Kingdom.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, because I often find living next door to your wife works much better than living together. There's nothing like living next door to your ex-wife. That's going to skip along.
Thanks there to the brilliant Simon Greenall. You're listening to Speak Up on BBC Radio Scotland. with myself, Lewis Macleod, looking at the world of voiceovers. Now it's time to talk to Big Daddy, the Jedi Knight, the biggest voice in Britain, Peter Dixon. Are you bothered with the farmer giants? Yes, piles. Then suffer no more. Pierce them with a badge pin and simply bleed to death. Yes, it's time to face the needle! My homage there to voice of the X Factor, Peter Dixon. I started by asking him about the evolution of the big booming voice.
It was beginning of the 90s, I think it was, when I was working on Steve Wright's show on Radio 1, developing character voices for his show, and then he got the breakfast show, I think it was 1993, 94, around about then, and he asked me to develop a new character, and I came up with this character called Voiceover Man, who was, it was slightly more high-pitched than it is now, but he was still, nonetheless, still the same kind of rumbustious voiceover voice, if you like. And so we ran that as a regular character on his show twice a day for about a year and a bit. And then I put him back in the box and forgot about it. And then about 2 or 3 years later, E4 rang my agent up and asked me if I would be able to audition for taking over from Patrick Allen, who was who I'd worked with and was a legendary voiceover, of course, a wonderful character actor, great guy. And so I went in and they said, can you get sort of as close to his presentation as you can? And I'd admired Patrick, of course, his work for years. And felt a bit awkward about it because Patrick was ill and was very seriously ill and subsequently died from his illness. But I knew him well enough to know that he would be okay with what I was doing, and so we got close to Patrick's style, and I pulled out Voiceover Man out of the box again and used that, and it's very kind of declamatory. Yes, that's right, and it's kind of because it's such a received pronunciation. It's very sort of crusty Colonel from Tunbridge Wells with a little bit of eyebrow raising going on. E4 the scripts they wrote for me were extraordinary. I mean, I was getting away with saying stuff that as an ordinary voiceover you just wouldn't get away with it, but because it was so conservative, so crusty, so kind of a dead center, that you could say stuff that people would just keel over with if you'd said it in any other way.
Harry Thompson picked up on it for Monkey Dust, didn't he? You used the same sort of content. Yeah,
dear old Harry. Loved Harry. I worked with Harry on Radio 2. He produced a show I did called Nightcap on Radio 2, which was a late night chaotic kind of show, which was great fun. And Monkey Dust, yeah, we did this character called Voiceover Man, where if you've seen it, you know.
I know, I love
it's
it.
Just this guy who talks like this all the time, even at home, and goes home to his wife and says, "They don't understand me. I'm a classically trained actor."
But that's the thing. I mean, the camaraderie between all of us, because we all kind of hang out, I suppose. Adam Longworth, another good mate, great VO. We impersonate you, and we do it so fondly as well, but we've all got our own kind of, no, but you see, he doesn't talk like that, he says it like this, and it's quite funny. It's like we get into arguments about how you sound. Yeah, I mean, I got taken on by a US-based VO agency, and it's auditions. They audition for everything. Everything's auditioned for the purposes of it being played to their agent, and if they like you, and but there must be hundreds of them.
Auditioning.
Exactly, yeah.
For no money either.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all gratis. But what I enjoy is the sound-alike stuff, because it feels more technical. It feels like, you're really trying to match, when they play a clip and it's on a loop and it's maybe 40, 50 times, and if you can get somewhere close to it, I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. Is there an aspect of voiceovers that you prefer? I know we do. We've shared a lot of VOs for video games. I know we did Tintin recently, but did you? Is there some aspect of it that you prefer?
Well, I like it all, really. But, the X Factor, of course, dominates my year from about August to December. And, of course, everybody wants a slice of that. So everybody wants me to do that voice all day long. And I end up doing that voice all day long. And by December,
I'm your sound-alike, though. Do you remember when you got the X Factor gig? Because we both did the X Factor. I did it in 2005. I did it, but I listened to it and I thought, that's not very good, because it needs that bravura that you've got with it. But it's still that kind of. It was quite declamatory, the X 75,000 people.
Yes.
But we've shared a kind of. kind of mirrored each other in many ways, but with the jobs that we've done, you know.
Yeah, but you're far more talented than I am.
No, darling. But when I did the Nickelodeon jobs, it was. We need you to sound like somebody, and of course they didn't tell my agency who it was you. And I was thinking, so when I turned up, and I was thinking, right, who's this guy that I've got to impress? I'm thinking I've never heard of you, you know. And they played your voice, I was rolling about the floor.
Yes.
I was going, it's Peter!
It's only because you're cheaper, love.
Exactly, you know.
It's got nothing to do with talent.
Small bricks build houses, Peter. So I was delighted when I got the gig to sound like you, and then went home and cried. It was a failure.
What was a lovely thought. Let me just hold that for a moment.
Tell me, I want to go back to your studio. Describe what is your studio? A lot of people think that it's the duvet over the head. How well set up are you doing?
Well, of course, our industry has changed beyond all recognition, as you well know. I mean, in the early days, I'm not talking that early days. I mean, I'm talking 10, 15 years ago. If we wanted to record a voiceover, you and I would have had to have gone into a studio, usually in a city centre location in London or Glasgow or wherever, and be recorded by an engineer onto big quarter-inch tape. And then that tape would have been edited using razor blades and put together and then mastered onto another tape and then sent out on a bike or via the Royal Mail to the radio station where it's going to be played. And that whole process would take days. This industry is now so much faster now, isn't it? Because with the advent of like microchips and processors and cheaper computers and software to go with it, we can now, as voiceovers, using the ISDN lines that we spoke about earlier and a little studio setup that I've got here at home, or using my computer, I can record myself and then send that recorded file as an attachment to an email. So literally, I could record something right now, zip it up into an email and send it to anybody in the world, and they could be playing it on their desktop computer or broadcasting it on a radio station or a TV network within minutes. I mean, that's extraordinary.
You were one of the first VOs when I started. I certainly hadn't met many that were, as you're describing, this kind of one-man business. A lot of VOs I know rely mostly on their agency. Is that something that you always wanted to do? Because you are very entrepreneurial as a VO. You're not just a voiceover.
Yeah, I mean, again, about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, I sat down. I was sitting in my studio one day, and I thought the phone hasn't rung all morning. And when the phone doesn't ring as a freelancer, you begin to worry. So you kind of. I used to pick the phone up and check that it was still working. Of course it was, and I'd be ringing my agent and say, why haven't we had any bookings in today? And so I thought I would actually take the bull by the horns and try and be a little bit more businesslike about it. So I decided that I would be my own PR agent, my own business centre, if you like. I'd create within my office.
Did you have board conversations with yourself?
I used to sit down...
Now listen, board, we're going to have to really increase our productivity.
I can't tell you the number of times that I've actually fired myself. You're fired!
But you'd be a great boss because you'd have to rehire yourself. All is forgiven. I sent you out to tenure for 6 months and brought you in like the prodigal son.
That's right. Next morning I'd have to call myself up and rehire myself. But, it was mad, but it made me feel better. So, yes, I just decided, I think you've got to be a little bit more businesslike. It is, yes. We are in show business, and business being the second most important word. It's got to be businesslike. But I decided to sort of, just go for it and start promoting myself. I built a website, I designed, all kinds of wacky stuff to promote myself. I approached agencies, I approached other agents, I approached PR companies, and directly I approached businesses who I thought may be around and may like to use my services. So I built up this huge portfolio of potential clients, and one by one they slowly started ringing me up and we started doing stuff. So I think you've got to be a little bit more proactive than perhaps maybe an actor might be who would sit there and do nothing. But then once you've got that portfolio of businesses, and people know you, and you've managed to cling on to doing this work, then I think the longer you can stay in it, the more kind of a reputation you get, and your name becomes obviously more famous, and people you become a go-to guy.
I noticed as well you're selling T-shirts. You're turning into a sex symbol here. Singles release T-shirts. How many T-shirts have you sold?
None.
Oh, well, I was going to. Well, maybe if Peter's doing it, I should do it.
Desperation in my voice. I've got a garage full of them.
I can see a mug working a T-shirt. That's pretty cool. I like that. Needs a picture of you so they know who you are. Is that something? Because I noticed you're actually in that character voice. Looking at the website and the podcast that you do, you're a fine presenter. Is there something that you would want to develop? This character voice that when you're.
I'd love to do something like that. Yes, to do a radio chat show as that character would be fantastic. Maybe I'll think about that.
Yeah,
because that would be funny, wouldn't it? Yes. Just interview people like this all the time.
Yeah, because the questions can be really direct.
Really direct.
Yeah.
Really, really direct.
But why are you doing that?
Yes.
Tell me now, in 50 words or less. Many thanks there to Peter Dixon. Well, folks, that's just about it on Speak Up 2, The Quest for the Right Voice. I hope you've enjoyed listening to how some of Britain's best-known voices began their careers. And if you've ever thought that you have that X factor in your voice, then don't forget, folks, auditions have now closed and there's no jobs left. Goodbye. Speak Up was written and presented by Lewis Macleod. Hello! And recorded by Dave Murrican, a super fellow. The producer was Gus Beattie, a lovely chap. Speak Up is a comedy unit production for BBC Radio Scotland. Yes!